Chicago, where he got his master's in religious studies, and University of California in Santa Barbara, where his PhD. And his PhD was focused on Cherokee game stuff.
Precursor to lacrosse.
Precursor to lacrosse, yeah, right, precursor to lacrosse. Today he is, holds a faculty appointment as associate professor in the religious studies department and as director of Indigenous studies. That's where he has his special interest, the interface between religiosity and Native American culture. And is interested in sports and play, and has developed an interest in James Naismith, and has a really interesting presentation on how Naismith and his religiosity interact with each other and inform this very interesting man's life. Michael, it's good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you, Dennis. Now, I'm going to sit down for the duration of the lecture, but I did want to mention that I brought with me some material in the front. Most of it is reproduction. There are some original items. Please feel free to take a look at them. There's some photographs and just a range of different materials that you're welcome to look at. I also have here a very rare early basketball that, oops, no, I'm just kidding. This is a reproduction of an early 20th century basketball. So it has the stitching, as you can see on the front. Does anyone remember playing basketball with a basketball like this? What do you know? Yes? Okay, we usually do. And it does bounce. It has a bladder in it. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this around if you want to take a look at it. And I'll get that back. But I'm going to go ahead and sit down and start now. And I do usually go kind of quickly through this, but I'm happy to obviously answer questions or my own personal roadie. Thank you. All right. This man's a performer. He knows what it takes. All right. Religion and basketball, Naismith's game. The Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame opened February 17, 1968 on the campus of Springfield College, Massachusetts, which was founded as a YMCA training school.
1968?
1968, the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
The Hall of Fame was named for James Naismith, who invented the game in 1891 at that same YMCA training school. In 1941 was celebrated as the Golden Jubilee of the invention of basketball. In conjunction, an international campaign was launched to erect a temple of basketball in Naismith's honor. And it's small, so I'll show you that in fact, a temple of basketball, and you can see Naismith's name there. You can see Naismith's name right there. Temple of basketball in Naismith's honor. Apparently the hall had a difficult time raising money, and it was known for a time as the Hole of Fame in Springfield. And there's a hole. Okay. It is now in its third location, and there are very few pictures of the interior of the first hall, such as this one. Despite a reduced budget, the designers still tried to maintain design elements that were quote-unquote religious. In the first hall, players were honored in a room called the Honors Court, and, quote, because Dr. Naismith was a deeply religious man, the Honors Court was meant to look as much like a cathedral as possible. Each member of the Hall of Fame had his 14-inch portrait superimposed in the middle of a multicolored, hand-painted, 10-foot-high piece of lucite plastic. The effect is that of a stained glass window with light coming from behind, colorfully illuminating the plaque. Remember the Hall of Fame? They didn't have a lot of money to work with, so that's what they came up with. All right, I already said that. In fact, the effect was impressive, if a bit odd. I remember it from several childhood visits with my grandfather. Viewing the pictures today, to my mind, the honors court looks like a cross between a room in a funeral home provided for families during funerals and an elementary school lunchroom. But the design did have a certain effect upon the visitor. 1985, the Hall of Fame moved off campus into a new building. A new honors court with a design scheme employing medallions was constructed, and the windows were offered back first to individuals and their families, and then, if the families didn't want them, to home institutions. The University of Kansas has 4. For many years, the windows were in a top-secret storage room in Allen Fieldhouse. This is a picture of the Forrest C. Fogg Allen window in that room. The other windows honor these players: Paul Endicott, Dutch Longberg, and William Johnson. In 2009, the KU Athletics Department allowed me to borrow the Allen window twice and bring it to Smith Hall for lectures, including that year's mini-college. The KU Athletics Department then decided that the Booth Athletics Hall of Fame would display the Fogg Allen window along with the other windows. A Lawrence carpenter built cases in which they are displayed and backlit, and the windows were refurbished. This is great because it was somewhat stressful to transport and be responsible for that window. So the next time you attend a game or visit the field house, take a look. There are 9 original framed images that remain on the Springfield College campus, including Naismith's. They are located in Blake Arena within the physical education complex just down the hall from James Naismith Court. They commemorate 9 men with connections to the college. But back to our story. What do we know about James Naismith's life and his religious convictions? Did his religious beliefs influence the creation of basketball? James Naismith, born near Almonte, Ontario, Canada in November 1861, orphaned as a boy and along with an older sister and younger brother sent to live with an uncle. After dropping out of high school and becoming a lumberjack, returned to school in his early 20s and graduated in 1883. In the fall of 1883, he left Almonte for Montreal, where he had been given a scholarship to McGill University. Naismith did missionary work in Manitoba in the summer of 1886 and received his BA in the spring of '87. He then enrolled in Presbyterian College, a seminary affiliated with McGill. And this is a photo of Naismith receiving his theology degree. During these years, he played rugby, football, and was a member of a gymnasium. This is a picture of Naismith and the McGill rugby team, and there he is right there on the left, where the Monty Python hand is pointing. This is a photograph of Naismith's room at Presbyterian College. It's an original photograph. And you'll notice that in the photograph, you can see there's a photograph on the wall up here. That's the picture from the previous slide. So he actually had that photo, this photo, in his room at Presbyterian College. And I'll say that this image, as well as some other ones that I'll mention, were originally in the collection that Dennis amassed, and no longer in his possession. But a lot of, several very important items, very interesting items, this being one of them. According to his biographer, during this time Naismith, quote, was privately advised to leave the evils of athletic life to devote himself to books and Christian duties. One Sunday morning, when Naismith was scheduled to be the student minister, having played a rough rugby game the day before, quote, he ascended into a Presbyterian pulpit with 2 black eyes. Although that's not him. No, that's not him either. No, that's not him either. No, that's not him either. There he is. And there his black eyes. Does anyone know who that is? That's George Whitefield, a famous preacher. And I don't know who that guy is. And that's Tim Tebow. All right. His theological classmates, observing his shiners and reminding him that rugby was the tool of the devil, prayed for his soul, and his professors warned him that ordination was not for such as he. In a 1932 lecture to students at Springfield College, Naismith recalled a similar earlier incident. When I first played football on the McGill team in '83, a group of my chums got together and had a prayer meeting over me because I was playing on the varsity team. As he said in this 1932 lecture to Springfield College students, I was studying theology and planning to be a minister as that looked to be the best thing I could do. During football practice, when McNutt was playing guard, something went wrong. The air wind blew with profanity. In the northern woods, we had nothing else to do but practice profanity. And he was a good exponent of it. By and by, he turned around to me and said, I beg your pardon, I forgot you were here. I had heard worse than that before, but I thought, why should anyone apologize to me for profanity? I went to Dr. Budge, secretary of the YMCA, and told him I believed that there was something in playing the game square, playing it hard with all the intensity that you have, but playing it square. I think you can influence men by doing that sort of thing. Dr. Budge told me they had a school for that very thing in Springfield, and I told him I was going to see it. Naismith graduated but was not ordained. Instead, he decided to enroll in the School for Christian Workers, later renamed the International Young Men's Christian Association, or YMCA, Training School in Springfield, Massachusetts. And that's an original, I don't know what the architectural term is, but that's from the facade of the original building. One of the documents that archival research has brought to light is Naismith's application to the Springfield YMCA, which is held by Springfield College. The following key questions and short answers tell a great deal about Naismith's future goals and mindset as he entered the Y. What is the work of a YMCA physical director? That was a question on the application. Answer: to win men for the master through the gym, to direct the kinds of exercise for each, organize, to track process, etc., to win the sympathy and love of the men, to be an example to them. And there it is in his handwriting, Naismith's handwriting. To win men for the master through the gym. Here's the full application. Question: why do you desire to enter upon the work of a YMCA physical director? My life work is to do good to men and serve God, and wherever I can do this best, there I want to go. My inclination and talent lies in that direction. Question: do you desire to take it up as a life work? Answer: if suited for the work. Question: why rather than some other line of Christian work? Answer: you obtain a power over the future fathers of the country and can help some at least from vice and sin. Luther H. Gulick. Applications to the YMCA were to be sent to Dr. Luther Gulick at Springfield School. He's the individual who created the YMCA symbol. 1889, Springfield College's physical director, Luther Gulick, proposed the triangle as a symbol of Christian personality, spirit, mind, and body. Gulick taught seminars in which Naismith was a student, and Naismith became the equivalent of a graduate teaching assistant at the school before being hired as an instructor. Some amazing graphics right there, right? Don't be too amazed. Both Gulick and Naismith were influenced by the theological doctrine of muscular Christianity. And you can see that Luther Gulick is making the triangle symbol with his hand there that he created. Muscular Christianity can be defined simply as a Christian commitment to health and manliness. Its origins can be traced to the New Testament, which sanctions manly exertion, Mark 11:15, and physical health, 1 Corinthians 6:19 through 20. It developed out of the, quote, Victorian cult of athleticism, which began with a concern for physical health in the 1830s. It was, quote, an athletic cult. Proponents adhered to the notion that cricket and rugby were ideal preparation for military and imperial responsibilities in ruling a colonial empire. It is important to note that in muscular Christianity, muscle development and athleticism were understood as means to an end, the end being character development, ethics, morals, and devotion to God and country, rather than as ends in themselves. As Naismith said in a 1932 lecture to Springfield College students, I came in the summer and saw what you were doing there and at other YMCAs. I found that there was a possibility of building and developing the character of the individual through physical activities. I have never regretted it. I asked my sister and uncle a few years ago if they had forgiven me for not becoming a minister. They shook their heads. I had gone against their wishes, but I am not sorry. And I have found it a tremendously fine thing for the building of character. A fellow instructor, James Naismith, at the Springfield, Massachusetts International, that's a long title, International YMCA Training School, was Amos Alonzo Stagg. Does anyone know who Amos Alonzo Stagg was?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Football, as you call
Yes,
it.
yes. Former Yale Divinity School student who felt he was not a good public speaker, and he was a fellow member of the YMCA football team there at that YMCA. In fact, he was the coach. Stagg was the player coach, and Naismith was a key player on this YMCA football team, which was nicknamed the Christians by the press. There's actually a New York Times article where they're referred to as the stubby Christians because they were smaller than the other, it says it right here. As Naismith once wrote, on the football field, I really learned to know Stagg and to admire his methods. In the dressing room, just before we were to go out on the field, Stagg had given us our instructions. Then he turned to us and said, let us ask God's blessing on our game. He did not pray for victory, but he prayed that each man should do his best and show the true Christian spirit. And as Naismith continued, our team averaged less than 160 pounds, but we played games with Harvard, Yale, Amherst, and other large colleges. We won our share of the games, and our team became known as Stagg's Stubby Christians. There's a picture, I don't know why he had shaved his facial hair. That's one of the only pictures, well, when he was young, of course, he didn't have it, but I'm not sure why he did that. But there he is right there. And Amos Alonzo Stagg is holding the football right there in the middle. Stagg accepted the job of football coach at the University of Chicago in part because he felt that he, quote, could influence others to Christian ideals more effectively on the field than on the pulpit. Stagg became a successful football coach and held the career victory mark for decades. From Stagg's perspective in 1892, coaching football at Chicago was a call to Christian service in which he could best be used, quote, for my master's service. Stagg was given a position on the faculty, the first such athletic position in the U.S. And then just to reiterate, I'll show you that slide again. Stagg's using the language for my master's service, and remember that in that answer to the question, Naismith said, what is the work of a physical director to win men for the master, through the gym? But back to our story. Gulick challenged Naismith to take charge of an unruly physical education class and create a game that could be played indoors year-round that would hold the students' attention, but also that reflected the ideas of the YMCA logo, mind, body, and spirit. Furthermore, according to the scholar Alan Gutman, Ultimately, basketball was meant as an instrument to bring these young men to Christ. And so Naismith created basketball. Most people think of Naismith as an older man because most pictures of him are from later in his life. However, he was a young man of 30 when he invented the game in 1891. There's a picture of him. In fact, both Gulick and Naismith were young men. Oops, my wonderful, there we go. Okay. Now this is a rare and famous work of art. Not really. This is like, there was a very talented young woman who worked in the Moore Reading Room in Smith Hall, and she did a few images like this for me. I think she works at Hallmark now. The Creation of Basketball by Michael, and I came up with the name. Michael Giordano Huberati. All right, YMCA Chapel, Springfield. And Naismith said, of basketball, let these be the 13 rules. There it is. And on the left, those are a couple images of some of the early rule books that are held in the Springfield College archive, as well as the 13 rules listed right there. And there's a basketball. Once Naismith had written the rules, it was time to play, and so it was. Basketball, the first game. And surprisingly, there's video that survives of that game. No, not really. Okay. There is a drawing that survives. This has been colorized, but there was a Japanese exchange student who sketched the game, and this is his sketch, and then it was then used on promotional materials for the game. That's the sketch right there. Genzaburo Ishikawa is his name. And there's the gymnasium where basketball was first played. Now this is a photo that was auctioned by Heritage Auction Galleries. And was sold for over $19,000 in 2006. It's now in a private collection, and I'm not sure of the provenance of this. It's not clear that this is actually. It's unclear what exactly this photo is. In other words, what I'm saying is there's not 100% agreement that this actually is a photo of that gymnasium, but it might be. Early basketball in peach baskets.